Welcome, everybody, on behalf of the Central Bank of Uruguay and of the IDB and of the International Association of Supervisory Bodies of Pension Funds. This international seminar for the decumulation stage and the role of technologies, of emerging technologies. I welcome you, and I will give the floor to Pablo Ferreri, Osvaldo Vacías, and Morgan Doyle. Pablo Ferreri is the Undersecretary of the Ministry of Finance and Economy since March of 2015 in our country. He was at the Dirección General de Impositiva. He was the president of the tax division for 2010-2011. He's a public accountant. He studied at the University of the Republic in Uruguay, and he has a master in tax from the University of Uruguay. Pablo Ferrari, you have the floor. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and to welcome you here in Montevideo at our house in these autumn days, which are so enjoyable today in Montevideo. So I welcome all of you. I welcome the authorities also, the Central Bank of Uruguay, the IDB, the International Association of Pension Fund Supervisory Bodies. It's a very long name, but it's very important because the topics that they address are very important, as we will be seeing today. And these are the main challenges that we have globally and also here in our country. Dear friends, at global level, we have some good news. In the past decades, the poverty in the world has diminished. Life quality has improved for millions of people, which, together with new scientific innovations in the medicine area, we've had an important, significant growth of life expectancy. On the other hand, the technological revolution shows us that we are not at a time of change, but we are in a change of era. In the next years, we will be seeing many changes and transformations which will be disruptive and will transform in a radical way the way that we trade, that we consume, and then how we relate. And undoubtedly, that will have a very strong impact in the labor market. We will see many new opportunities arising with new professions that we cannot even imagine today. But we will also see the loss of other jobs, and many will be automatized. Therefore, the rise in life expectancy and the deep changes in the labor market because of the technological revolution will allow us to see a future with great challenges for the pension fund systems. What new generations of reforms of pension funds will be needed to ensure the sustainability of them? What new reforms do we need to be able to pay the pensions for more time or to pay better pensions? All of this is giving us great challenges at global level, and that's why we need to have these meetings with very technical stages in order to discuss this and understand and exchange different points of views in order to help our countries. Some characteristics, very briefly, regarding Uruguay, the case of Uruguay, so that you can really understand what's happening in our country. Why, for us, at state level and in the design of public policies for the next years is absolutely essential. This is a core issue for us. Our pension fund system has a very long tradition. It has achieved a very high coverage. If we compare this in relative terms with Latin America, in Uruguay the coverage is about 70% of all workers, when the average in Latin America is below 45%. And this coverage goes hand in hand with the OECD replacement rates. And this shows us some figures that have positive impacts in elderly people. In 2018, poverty in Uruguay closed at 8.1%. But poverty in elderly people, 65 years old and over, was 1.4%. Of course, this is difficult. Pension funds have a very significant importance in our economy, and the cost of pensions represents about 12 points of the GDP. Most of it is public expenses. And the deficit of pension funds has to be covered by the state when we receive the contributions of the assets is about 6 and 7 points of GDP. And this, so you can see how important this issue is for the coming days, for the coming years in our Uruguayan economy. We see that the aging population is also a conflict. We see that in the next decades we will find a significant increase of dependency of employees, that is the elderly and the population of actively working people. So demography will put a lot of pressure on Social Security. The other trend is technological changes. Apart from the global impact, in the case of Uruguay, we can see basically two very big challenges. First of all, it's possible that some jobs that are carried out today as employees in the future will be seen as having more freelance workers. And given that the coverage rates are lower for freelancers, and in average they contribute lower taxes, this can bring in precarious jobs if we look at financing the system. Also, the Social Security system in Uruguay is fragmented. We have the general area, but we also have the military pension fund, we have the industry pension fund, and the impact will be greater in some areas than in others. And we will be able to see greater pressure in these pension funds because they will be exposed to technological changes. So we do have a lot of challenges ahead of us. And some of the challenges in the decumulation stage, let me tell you that since 1996, the Social Security system in Uruguay has a mixed system which is comprised of contribution and capitalization and individual contributions. Most of the relative attention to capitalization has focused on the activities of management, pension fund managements, which is the AFAP. That's the acronym here in Uruguay. These AFAP, or pension fund administrators, who are administrating the pension funds today, represent 28.5% of the GDP, which is a very significant figure. But we expect that in 25 or 30 years, that pension fund, which is at 28% of GDP, will be 45 or 60% of GDP. So this fund is a privileged player here in the capital markets, and especially for public debt markets. And this will, and it already has, and it will have a greater impact in the Uruguayan economy. And after 2 decades of the Social Security reform that brought the mixed system in Uruguay, we are seeing the maturity stage right now in Uruguay, and we expect the people who will be retiring having annuity pensions and of AFAPs, and it will be growing in the next 40 years. So The decumulation stage will have a core significance in the following decades in our country. And in this sense, we have been working from the public sector, from the Ministry of Economy and Finance and the Central Bank of Uruguay, basically along two lines of action, together and in a coordinated way. First of all, to strengthen and update the regulatory framework of the pension fund system. And secondly, to promote the development of instruments, of market instruments, that will allow the pension fund administrators to have a better management of their risks. We have taken some actions with regards to the regulatory framework that dates back to 2018. All of these are to overcome certain difficulties in the design of the Social Security plan, and also to have new players in the pension fund market, where we have only one insurer today, which is a state body, which is our state bank. Today, we also have mortality charts, and we have seen also changes in the technical rate systems. And at the same time, we have fostered from the Ministry of Economy the issuance of local debt in local currency, which are indexed to nominal salaries, nominal wages. Because the pensions in Uruguay, because of the Constitution, are indexed at the average index of salaries. So those people who have to pay for those contributions had to pay the bonds or the securities where they had to invest. So it was necessary to create a new currency and issue public bonds to be able to put those flows, the mismatch of those flows. This has been an interesting change with positive results for those who are part of these markets. Dear friends, these actions want to help with the sustainability of the system and promote the insurance market to give more options to the workers who are going to retire. These are just some examples of the actions that Uruguay has taken in the past years to ensure the sustainability of the system. But in the following term, office term of the presidency, that we are now in our last year of the presidency, we believe that the next presidency will have to look at addressing a new pension fund reform. These are very significant data that we have just shared with you. And it is necessary to take actions in a more general terms in order to ensure the sustainability of our pension fund systems. So now that we have looked at the context of Uruguay, we need to learn from you. We want to hear your experiences. We want to have the opportunity to listen to your success and your failures in order to learn and continue having the best system that we can for pension funds. And we believe that has to be sustainable in time. So welcome everybody once again to our country. Welcome to Montevideo. And thank you very much and have a very nice day. Thank you.
Agradecemos.
Thank you very much, Subsecretary of Ministry of Economy and Finances. Now we give the floor to Osvaldo Macias. He is the Superintendent of Pensions of Chile since January 29, 2016. He is also the President of the International Association of Pension Fund Supervision Organizations, AIOS, since June 1, 2017. He was the Insurance Intendant at the Superintendency of Securities of Chile from 2003 and 2016. Previously, he was head of studies in 1994 and 2003, and head of control and financial analysis 1990 and 1994 of the former superintendency of AFP. He holds a commercial engineer degree and a Bachelor of Science in Administration from Universidad Católica de Chile, and Master in Business Administration from Universidad Adolfo Ibáñez. Good morning. I would like to greet all of you, Mr. Pablo Ferreri, Subsecretary of Finances here in Uruguay, Mr. Morgan Doyle, representative of the IDB in Uruguay, and the authorities of the representative countries of the IAOS and the PLAC network, workers of IDB, and all of you. We are here in Montevideo to celebrate our international seminar on innovation for the stage of decumulation and the role of emerging technologies, organized by the Association of Pension Fund Supervision Organizations, IOS, and the IDB. Here we have representatives of many governments, with authorities regarding pensions from 15 countries of Latin America and the Caribbean. Pensions are nowadays one of the most important topics in our world. The aging population, the low decrease of the birth rate, the low rentability of or profitability of investments, and technologies pose challenges to give the best benefits to population and for their financial sustainability. In the region, many of our countries are studying or going through many reforms in their pension laws to approach all of the or to address all of the challenges. Here we see different specialists from the country where we will hear about the technology regarding pension funds, seeing the impact on investments, types of employments, and the type of economy of behavior. And we're going to see also many topics regarding the phase of accumulation of pension funds. And we will also learn the risk for longevity in the retirement stage, information for people who go into retirement, ways of pension retirement, and also annuities. And later on, in the following days, we will have a technical meeting from the AIOS and the PLAC network, where we're going to go deeper into different topics that are interesting for the pension system of our region, and we will wrap up with our assembly of IAOS. Thank you very much for your assistance.
Bien, y para
And to finish this first stage of our conference, where we are welcoming everybody, we're going to invite Morgan Doyle. He's a representative of the IDB in Uruguay since June 2017. During his 19 years of career in the IDB, he has been the representative in Ecuador since 2013 and 2017, and he has also been a senior advisor to the Vice President of Sectors and Knowledge. He has led various operations in the financial sector, working with key agencies of the public sector involved in housing finance and support to small and medium enterprises, debt management, regulation and supervision of the financial sector, and guaranteed transactions, among others. Morgan holds a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in development from Brown University. So you have the floor, Morgan. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. First of all, I wish to acknowledge the Subsecretary Pablo Ferreri, Osvaldo Macias, and our colleagues from the Central Bank of Uruguay for organizing this conference. I'm very happy to be here. We are living in very incredible times today when we talk about pension funds in Latin America and the Caribbean, because of all the challenges that everybody knows in the region, and one that is just starting to become aware, which is potential impacts. As you know, in the region, we are going to go from one of the youngest in the world to one of the oldest in the world, and this is going to happen in a very fast way. In the 50s, 1 out of 5 people in the region will be more than 65 years old. In the IDB, we're trying to support the countries in the region to understand these processes in the long term and to see how they will impact the pension fund systems. As expressed by the Subsecretary, is a reality that we are already living here in Uruguay and also in Argentina. These two countries already have aging populations in the region, but still there are other countries in Central America that are just starting this transition in demography, but we are going to see how they will converge in a very fast way towards in the following decades. The other challenge, which is well known, is the high informality, high informal jobs in the region. Less than 50% of the workers have access to pension fund schemes, and most of the people who do not contribute are freelancers. So this is a challenge, a very general challenge. Informality is one of the factors that we have for low pension funds observed in the region. In Uruguay is one of the countries in the region that has high rates of coverage, the highest, in fact. So this dimension is not a unique challenge in the country, but Uruguay spends more on pensions than Spain, Greece, Italy, and many other countries of the OECD. This is a result of this demographic profile that I have just mentioned. And now, what's new? What's different? What brings us together today? The impact of automation, digitalization, the economies of platforms, of e-platforms. This is something that we do not know very well today. Technological developments promise, on the one hand, to have very promising opportunities, but it also brings more challenges for those responsible of pension fund policies. One difference from the normal wages and employees is inequality among the protected workers, protected by pension funds that are generous, and those that do not have pension funds or do not have contributing pension funds. This is a dilemma that we have to address. However, the technological advances offer new ways of addressing or to save for pensions, sharing risks, consolidating the trust of the citizens in pension funds, and also new tools of communication that were not available a few years ago. That is what's new. That's what's new today. This is what brings us together today to discuss these emerging technologies. These challenges are coming at a time when the reforms that were introduced in the past decades are finishing their first cycle. That means that the cuts that the people who contributed in these last years are just retiring now in the past years, and some are going to retire in the following years. But the greatest efforts of designs and reforms have focused in the accumulation stage. The decumulation stage, which is what we want to talk about today, was something that was seen very far away. It was a concern for the long term. It wasn't something that we were concentrated on. But we are there today. We have reached the future. We are here today. Given historical reasons and some regulatory reasons, no country in the region except for Chile and Uruguay, with a public player, there is a market for annuities. It's an annuities market, but it's not very functional. We need to learn from experiences from other countries and innovations that are coming up in order to be able to put these into action in our countries. So the program of this conference was very well designed by the international experts in the AIOS and Red Plaque to receive some of the top-notch technologies because they use front-border technologies or because they use innovative ways of administering or managing or looking at risk or looking at the needs of pension funds. I am sure that you will find our program very useful and interesting. This will also be true for all the authorities and participants. So I hope you have a wonderful conference, and I hope you can learn very much from this experience. So welcome again to Uruguay. It's a pleasure to be with you today.